We are also following breaking news overseas at this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced he will delay his push to overhaul the country's court system until next month. The proposed changes have sparked massive protests across the country. Hundreds of thousands of workers went on strike today, bringing much of the country's businesses to a complete halt. NBC News correspondent Josh Lederman is following this big news for us. Hey, Josh, so how are strike organizers responding to Netanyahu's delay announcement? What's the latest on the ground?
Hey, Savannah. Well, the Histadrut, the umbrella labor union for Israeli workers, has announced they are lifting that strike and saying that they are ready to work with Prime Minister Netanyahu on some type of compromise efforts to reform the judiciary now that he has delayed this current proposal until the next legislative session. And I just heard from the Israeli embassy in Washington, who told me that the diplomats there, they are back on the job, and the embassy in the U.S. is going to be reopening. But Savannah, this is not over, because Prime Minister Netanyahu is not walking back his desire to see these judicial overhauls. He's merely punting this to the next legislative session. And he's in fact insisting that somehow he's going to need to get these judicial overhaul measures pushed through. And so he says this is something he still is committed to.
Josh, let's zoom out a little bit here and talk about some of the context. So Prime Minister Netanyahu's on trial right now for corruption and fraud charges. So some critics of his say that these proposed changes are so that he can protect himself, again, an overhaul to the court system. What is Netanyahu's response to that criticism?
Yeah, and those criminal cases have been ongoing against Netanyahu for years now. Now, he obviously denies that this overhaul has anything to do with protecting himself. He says this is about a judiciary that is out of control. And in his brief remarks today announcing he's postponing this legislation, Netanyahu was defiant and bombastic, saying our side is right. He was praising the pro-Netanyahu protesters who came out to the streets in support of this legislation. And he even likened this situation to the judgment of King Solomon from the Bible some 3,000 years ago. So Netanyahu insists this is about trying to make changes that are needed to preserve Israel's democracy, even though the tens of thousands who have taken to the streets obviously vehemently disagree with that, Savannah.
Josh Lederman, thank you very much for reporting on this breaking story.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.